Hey everybody, so for next week I want you to double check the footnotes that I used. I did it again, endnotes. Um, I'll never change. Anyway, the endnotes that I use for an article that I published in 2012, which was a big deal for me. My first um, publications were on Union veterans and the origins of the VA medical system. Um, and then I did a kind of a radical transition, which was influenced by my students actually in a 2003 class. I I went from examining Union veterans and the medical care of Union veterans and the pensions offered Union veterans after the Civil War to looking at the Civil War in a hemispheric context. In other words, I tied in Mexico to the story of the Civil War, and it's played off. It's been a big deal for me. It's a framing of the Civil War that's was unique at the time, and it's really put me on the map. And plus, it's been really fun because it allows me to talk about Texas, but in an interesting way and in a hemispheric way or a continental way, as you'll see. So, this is the article that I published, and I want you to read it, but really, for the assignment, what I want you to do is I want you to look at my footnotes and double check them. Now, if you find a mistake, don't tell me because the thing's already published. Actually, you can tell me, it's fine. But what the purpose of this assignment is to make sure that you all are comfortable with the powerful databases that we have at the UTSA library, which I can't tell you enough how revolutionary it is, how revolutionized historical research has become, and how easy it's become for you all. And so I want to use this article and have you be, and the point here is to have you use these databases because, like anything, like riding a bike or uh, learning a computer program or anything important, you learn by doing, right? You don't learn by someone like me just telling you. So what I want you to do is use the footnotes that I use. Again, I did it. Use the citation that I use or double check my citations and make sure that I'm correct. So the first one is that I want you to look at is you'll see the title. It says the North American Crisis of the 1860s, but I have a little epigraph which I like doing at the beginning of articles. And the one I want you to look at is the New York Times from July 2nd, 1867. Real quickly, the French had tried to put a dictator in, or a king into Mexico named Maximilian of Austria. And there was a very vicious war. The French tried to colonize Mexico by putting in a puppet prince, Maximilian of Austria. He was backed by the French army. And after a long war, he was defeated and executed in 1867. And for me, that's a big deal because I argue that the French intervention and the Civil War were really one conflict, and that the U.S. Civil War didn't end really until the execution of Maximilian in 1867. So anyway, so what you'll see when you look at this article, you'll see the New York Times, July 2nd, 1867. I want you to find that quote in the New York Times, and I want you to make sure that I did it right. Now, what you'll see if you look at the quote, it says, from our point of view, his, and then you see Maximilian is in brackets. Okay, this is something that you should remember. Maximilian is not in the quote, and I put in his name for clarity's sake. My reader has not been introduced to Maximilian yet because my reader has not started to read the article yet. So I wanted to be clear that who I was talking about is Maximilian, and the exact quote is, from our point of view, his victory But I wanted to clarify that it was Maximilian, so I put Maximilian in brackets. And the important thing for you guys to remember is you can put your own words in a direct quote as long as it's in brackets, okay? And so that's why it's in brackets there. So it shouldn't show up in that New York Times article that I'm asking you to look for. Okay, so how do you find this article? Well, I'm going to go through it with you. What you do, you go in, and we talked about this on Tuesday, but I just want to repeat. Go into the library homepage, okay? On your left, you see databases, right? Click that. And one of the things that you'll notice is there's a ton of databases, music, philosophy, engineering, classics. It's not just history. I'm telling you, we have millions of dollars worth of databases in our system. It's pretty incredible what you have access to. So anyway, you go into databases, then you find history, you click history, and then what Sherry has done is she's given what she calls the best bets. And what she means by that is these are databases that she thinks that our students will use the most. Now, there's other databases that she hasn't put on this best bet under history. And we have it kind of easy, or I have it kind of easy, my students, because it's U.S. history. We do 19th century, and most of the material I look at is public record. And actually, a lot of it now you can find on Google Books and download it on a PDF. What Google has done, it's gone into the major libraries in the United States, and it's digitizing the collection of these libraries. And especially if it's public record. Now, this is kind of controversial, but for me, it's fantastic because literally there are books that I used to have to go to Harvard or the New York Public Library that I would used to 10 years ago. If I wanted to access them, I would need to go there. Now, because of what Google has done, most of the material that I need, I can access online and download as a PDF. Think how incredible that is. It's really leveled the playing field when it comes to research. So anyway, these are the best bets. And I'm going to go through that again. My process. See how much time I have on this. 7. Okay. So just to repeat, I want you to look at the second quote in my article, which is from the New York Times, I think July 2nd, 1867. How do you double check it? You go to the library homepage, go to databases, go to history. Then what you want to do is you want to go to historical newspapers. Okay? And then sign in. And you're there. Now, the easiest way to double check a newspaper site is to put in, if you see publication date there, you can put in the actual date. You can put in the actual date, July 2nd, 1867. I have to double check because make sure it's July 2nd. Give me a second here. 18, I did 19. Okay, yep, I'm right. And then what you can do in advanced search, what I would do is I would put in Maximilian, or you can put in a word from the quote, okay? So I would put in well, actually I'm wrong. I'm wrong because Maximilian is my word. I would put in calamity. And the reason calamity is because that's a word you don't see that much, right? So if you want to do a search, you want to search on a word that you don't see that much. So you wouldn't want to put in from or. Now you might try the phrase from our point of view, and that might take you right to the article. So what I want you to do is I want you to find this article that I quoted from the New York Times. I want you to download it on a PDF, and I want you to bring it to class. I want you to put your name on it. I want you to put your email on it. I'm going to ask you to download a couple of things. Now, some stuff you can't download, it's just too much. But you can download this article, and I want to see it in class. You turn it in class next week. So, again, the second quote in my article, which is from the New York Times, July 2nd, 1867, find the article in the New York Times through our historical newspaper database, and then print it out, put your name on it, and bring it to class. And actually, not only bring it to class, but I also want you to underline or highlight the quote that I use.